Mr. President, I come to this lectern today to speak on a subject of perennial importance. It's a subject I know a little something about, one that will not only influence the Senate agenda in the near term, but will determine the direction of our democracy for decades to come. I speak, of course, on the future of the Supreme Court. Yesterday, Justice Anthony Kennedy, a great friend of mine, and a wonderful justice on the court, announced his intention to step down effective July 31st. Justice Kennedy has served this nation with highest distinction. Over the course of his tenure, he has exercised outsized influence on the Supreme Court, playing a pivotal role in some of the most consequential court decisions of modern times, from McDonald versus Chicago to Citizens United versus FEC. As a testament to his independence, he rightly gained a reputation as the Supreme Court's swing vote. Sometimes he sided with the court's liberal wing. Other times he sided with the conservatives, but he always sided with what he believed to be the correct interpretation of the law. What more could we ask for from a judge? Throughout his public service, Justice Kennedy has mentioned a generation of jurists who went on to become He's mentored a generation of jurists who went on to become luminaries in their own right. Not least among them is Justice Neil Gorsuch, a former Kennedy clerk, who now serves as his equal on the Supreme Court. With his one-time pupil now working alongside him, and with dozens of former clerks now serving in the federal bench, Justice Kennedy leaves behind a legal legacy that is almost without equal. Although he will be stepping down next month, his influence on our judicial system will be felt for generations to come. With Justice Kennedy's impending retirement, the responsibility now falls on us to confirm an able replacement. In the coming weeks, the President will announce his nominee to fill Justice Kennedy's seat. In doing so, he will seek the advice and consent of the Senate, a process that entails confirmation hearings and extended hours of debate to fully vet the qualifications of the President's nominee. The questions we should ask during this confirmation hearing should focus solely on the judge's qualifications. Does he or she have the requisite experience to adjudicate wisely from the bench? Does he or she understand the proper role of a judge under the Constitution? Does he or she respect our Constitution? And is he or she committed to upholding its principles, no matter the consequence? This process should be simple, straightforward, and most importantly, non-political, but it rarely is. That's because we already know that Democrats will do everything they can to politicize a process that should not be politicized. We already know that many of them will ask questions of the nominee with an ulterior motive in mind, to divine her or his partisan leanings rather than evaluate the quality of her or his jurisprudence. And how do we know the Democrats will do this? Because we've seen them do it time again. It started with the character assassination of Robert Bork and culminated in the unholy inquisition of Clarence Thomas. Tensions seemed to subside for a time, but then came the unprecedented filibuster of Samuel Alito, and most recently the public flagellation of Neil Gorsuch. In every case, the nominee in question possessed indisputable credentials and an airtight judicial record. But in every case, my colleagues sought to drag these men into the partisan gutter, asking questions designed to parse their political positions rather than their legal philosophy. Mr. President, in my 42 years of Senate service, I have witnessed the gradual deterioration of the judicial confirmation process. As the former chairman of the Judiciary Committee and now its longest-serving member, I have taken an active role in the confirmation of every justice currently sitting on the Supreme Court and a number who have retired. Moreover, I have participated in the confirmation of half of all Article III judges who have ever served. Throughout this process, I've met some of the brightest legal minds this world has to offer, and I've watched and discussed as my friends on the Democrat side sought to undo these men and women for political gain. Judicial obstruction is a serious issue on its own right, but it's merely a symptom of a much larger problem, the politicization of our courts. In today's America, Republicans and Democrats espouse two vastly different visions for the judicial branch. On the right, we believe in the judiciary as outlined in the Constitution, an integral but necessarily limited branch of government that interprets laws but doesn't make them. We believe in a judiciary filled with sober-minded judges who are committed to upholding the Constitution as written, not molding it to fit their political preferences. On the left, you have a starkly different vision. The left believes that the judiciary should assume an activist role, stepping in to fill the gaps of legislation where Congress fails. In doing so, the judiciary becomes its own quasi-legislative body, a Congress 2.0 of sorts, filled with hundreds of judges who are unelected and therefore unaccountable to the American people. This conception of judicial power is inherently anti-democratic. It undermines the principle of representative government and cedes lawmaking power to a cadre of black-robed philosopher kings, a cloistered group of men and women who have no constitutional authority to make legislation, but seek to do so anyways through their opinions. Given the left's radical vision of judicial power, it's no wonder the confirmation wars have escalated over the years, and it's no wonder Democrats have made a circus of confirmation hearings. They seek to politicize the process because ultimately they seek political judges. Mr. President, as usual, what the left wants is not what America needs. America doesn't need political judges. It doesn't need an army of super legislators telling us what to do. It certainly doesn't need a second Congress making laws on a whim. Isn't the one we have dysfunctional enough? No, Mr. President, what is best for America is wholly different from what the left envisions. America needs a judiciary insulated from the corrupting influence of politics. Accordingly, we need principled judges who put the law before any partisan concern. As opposed to political judges, we need impartial judges, judges who understand their limited role under the Constitution, judges who are content to say what the law is, not what they want it to be, judges who act as umpires, calling balls and strikes instead of swinging at every pitch that comes their way. In short, we need judges who will interpret the Constitution, not remake it in their own image. Taking Justice Gorsuch as an example, I have every confidence that the President's nominee to the Supreme Court will be qualified, competent, and impartial in every way. And if Democrats' treatment of Justice Gorsuch is any indication of things to come, then I have every reason to believe that they will again do everything in their power to politicize this important confirmation process. They will do everything they can to malign the nominee, no matter what his or her background or credentials depicting his or her, and really are, depicting his or her as an extremist who is outside the mainstream. They will press, prod, and pry in an attempt to unearth a political agenda where none is to be found. They will bring all resources to bear in an effort to prevent a principled constitutionalist judge from taking Justice Kennedy's seat. They will pull out all the stops to accelerate the politicization of the Supreme Court, but we won't let them. Mr. President, it's on us. It's up to us to preserve the integrity of the judicial branch. We can begin by confirming a Supreme Court nominee who is committed to upholding the principles of the Constitution at all costs. a nominee who understands that the lawmaking power lies with Congress, not the courts. Now, I look forward to working with my colleagues in this endeavor in the weeks to come.